right, it's kind of cool. Yeah. All right. I got one more I want to pull up, and this one is Pastor Stephen. And if you don't know him, have you ever been here? Anyway, he does many things and has been with us for quite a while. And we've been thrilled to see the growth in him and who God is making him to be. So I want you to just come on up and just share a couple things.
This is different.
I didn't even shake your hand.
Oh, what's the deal?
I got so excited that you were coming up here. Let's do it.
Oh, there we go.
All right. So, well, you're a live wire.
I know. This is dangerous, man.
You know, I was thinking of just kind of working from here and going backwards today.
Cool.
If that works.
Sure.
But, you know, I think most of you know, right now, Pastor Stephen is an associate pastor here at the church. Leads worship, leads the young adults. And if I were to try to list the things he does, you know, basically we'd be here a long time. So, but those are things you see him doing. What I see is how you pressed in to get to the place that you're at. And I could tell this story, and if you don't hold me back, I might just start telling it. But,
tell it. I want to hear it.
But, well, you know, I'll just start when he was, you know, finally at a point where he was on staff here. It was like it didn't matter if we were here, and this guy is my son-in-law. If you don't know that, you know, he's married to my oldest daughter, and we're proud to have him as a son-in-law. So he gets me here, and he gets me at home, because a lot of times they're at our house. And I'm telling you, whatever I'd get called to do, this guy would just be there. And he'd go with me. I never even had to ask him. I'd get a call to go to the hospital on Christmas Day. Come on, let's go. He's just there, you know. And whatever it is, you know, I've had other calls that you know may not even be enjoyable, but he said, "Hey, I'm with you. Let's go. Come on, we're going to do this thing." So I mean, he is probably accelerated to the point where he's at just because of the motivation in his heart to just press in. Am I right?
Yeah.
Am I telling things?
Yeah,
no,
that's good.
I'm
doing that, man. I can't get too into this, otherwise I'll start to cry at y'all. You know, but I think the reason why, thanks. I think the reason why I was so driven to jump into stuff here, and jump into helping others too, you know, at whatever capacity I could, you know, which obviously when I first started coming was pretty limited because I was still all cracked out and, you know, I mean, so, you know, I can play a guitar like that, saved and, you know, starting to make some lifestyle changes and stuff like that. But I guess I just saw such dramatic change in my life and in the lives of those that I started to serve. And so, why wouldn't you want to give that out? You know, it's almost unfair to hold it in. So, cut me off.
Do you need a drink?
No. That's my cry tremble.
Okay.
I got plenty of voice.
It's true if you need
you guys know I got plenty of voice.
This is not moonshine.
Yeah, no. No vodka
in
that jar. That's delivered, Stephen. You know.
So, you know, back in the day, you know, before you were even a Christian, you used to hang out at my house.
Yeah, I did.
And this guy, you know, like my daughters, was in a band, and eventually you guys are all in the same band. I remember this guy actually. Can I tell my perspective? I remember my kids used to play in a band called Linden, and it started off just being Karen Casey. And I'd go with them, and Dana would go most of the time too, and we'd set up in these different clubs. And they never wanted to be in a quote-unquote Christian. They wanted to be in a more of a secular arena and be a light. And they were the goody girls and all that. And I remember specifically like a club over in Burnsville, Minnesota. It's called The Garage. And so being the roadie that I was, I'd be backstage at some of these venues. And that's right, I was the roadie. Some people are soccer parents. I was a roadie. And I'd carry that big old keyboard, what was it, some kind of a Yamaha.
Oh my gosh,
And
that thing was
it was
huge.
heavy.
Ridiculous.
And I'd see this guy, because his band would be playing there, and he'd be walking backstage, and I feel like this, is I'd see him coming, and he always had on a hoodie. Always did. And he'd see me coming, and because I'm carrying a piano, my hands are tied, but his hands are free, and he'd like pull that hood up tight over his face and look the other way.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to see that guy.
Yeah.
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 You remember those days?
Oh, I absolutely
Were you
remember
really
those days.
doing that?
Well, yeah, man. I mean, I don't know. So for some of y'all who don't know, I love, this is fun, because for some of you who don't know, I come from unchurched world, okay? Some of y'all maybe knew me back in the day. I see some familiar faces from the high school days, and churched, just wasn't anything familiar to me. So I thought you were like Father Paul, And you were Father Paul. You were Father Paul. I mean, so honestly, my mentality and my perspective of this guy, and I say this now, appreciating who you are and what you were doing, but I thought it was so lame that you and Dana were at Kara and Casey's shows.
And in my mind, I thought every one of these guys was thinking, how cool. His parents are there.
Yeah, and that's, now looking back, I'm like, wow, that was so tremendous that they came to these shows and stuff like that. It was super cool. But man, when I saw you, because my perspective is I was on drugs, like pretty hardcore at the time. I was kind of hopping around different houses. I was broken, man, and I was kind of like a womanizer. Can you say that without sounding? Anyways, this is what I was,
Go ahead.
And I remember when I saw you at those shows, I mean, the reason the hood came further down was because I thought that when you came up to me, you were going to just tell me to avoid your daughters, or not to avoid, but to stay away from your daughters because I wasn't going to be a good influence,
Yeah.
And so that was the beautiful thing is our first interaction was obviously the opposite of that when you were like, hey, God loves you, we love you, and at the time, I didn't have a place to stay. You said you can come stay with us if you want.
What you can hear, you can understand why he was an object of our prayers,
Yeah,
But-
I was messed up.
But I can tell you this, too, that in the old church, in the one over on 2110 Highway 12, when we had a prayer room in that particular building, and we'd go in there before the service and pray, and we had a window onto the parking lot. And what I remember is one Sunday we're in there praying, and we knew who this guy was. And we just saw him walking into church. Alert went out. Stephen Keller's walking through the parking lot. Hey, come on, yeah.
Thankfully, you guys didn't hide. You ran and interacted with me, which was nice. I think, though, if I could, I'm going to flip this on you, Pastor Paul.
Oh, no.
Because I would say, we could both sit here and talk about the intricacies of our calls and how influential they are and stuff like that. But, I've seen portions or sects, Roberto, of Christianity, where we can tend to cubby ourselves off. We can hide from the sinners, shun the non-believer, you know what I mean? And that's so unbelievably not Jesus. When we were in that band, I wasn't even saved. And this guy's, prayerfully letting us in his house, join this band with his daughters, tour the nation, and I got to see the inside of this dude's life. I was coming in, and honestly, if you guys want to know how bitter I was, how anti-Christ I was, I guess, really, when I first started coming to your house, no joke, I was looking for skeletons in the closet. Like, for real. I was like, what's going to happen when I go to this man of God's house, and I start seeing what life really looks like for them.
Did you find that cutout picture of Michael W. Smith?
Yeah, he was in the closet.
Yeah.
Someone, that's
Life
something in the
size.
closet. But what really spoke to me, honestly, is so I come from, and it's so cool what God has done in my family since then. But I come from a pretty broken family situation, and I didn't understand any sort of love other than the jacked up, sexual, overly romanticized love that I had come to put all of my hope in with women. And so it was unreal to me to come into a home that actually functioned, in like a real loving way. And sure, it wasn't like you guys were perfect. You weren't like the Fuller House family, But, like Fuller House family, goodness. All right. We're already making references to that show, huh? But, it wasn't like you guys were perfect or putting on or anything like that, but you were real, and I could see that y'all had something that I had never known and never experienced. And so you, outside of just getting up here on this stage and preaching, are on top of that. I mean, you take on a lot, and you're speaking things to people and doing things for people that really change lives, So, I mean, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for all of you, but also just for this guy letting me be the creep in his home, So yeah, don't shun people. Don't shun people, please.
It's kind of like we said in the beginning, is you never know who you're ministering to.
Yeah.
And every person is valuable. Everyone is. So they need to be treated that way.